Family deportations were set to begin in major U.S. cities today. President Trump tweeted yesterday that he would delay them, quote, to see if the Democrats and Republicans can get together and work out a solution to the asylum and loophole problems at the southern border. But what exactly does the president want to see in a deal that would prevent these deportations?
Jake, we have a crisis on our southern border.
Right.
I was down there just a few short months ago. I was at a detention center. I mean, we are on track this year to have more than 1 million people come into our country illegally. And for the first time ever, the vast majority of them are people that are bringing minor children with them.
I want to talk about that.
They're people that are exploiting what are well-known loopholes in our laws that say if you arrive with a minor, that you can only be detained for 20 days, and after which you're essentially released into the country.
Right, because of the Flores decision.
You know that 90+% of the people that apply for asylum in this country are denied. They actually don't have a claim for asylum. And so the president took steps earlier this year, declared a national emergency. We're building the wall.
Well, what does he want with the asylum laws? What does he want changed with the asylum laws?
What we want to end the days where people believe they can come into the country, make a claim of asylum from oppression or deprivation or violence in Central America or elsewhere, and then be released into the country on their own recognizance, only to vanish into the nation. With now the president's efforts at enforcing our laws are that 90% of the people never show up for their hearing in the months ahead. We've got to close the loopholes. I don't think that number is accurate about 90% not showing up. I think a majority do show up. I mean, they all should show up. It should be 100% show up. Well, it's actually not true.
Well, let me ask you a question.
People with a hearing that's scheduled 6 months, a year, 18 months later, the overwhelming majority, plus 90%, don't show up. And people in Central America know this. I've been down to those countries known as the Northern Triangle. I have talked to the leaders of those countries on many occasions. Human traffickers are taking $5,000 cash per person to entice people to take vulnerable children on the long and dangerous journey north.
Right.
People are being hurt on both sides of the border.
This is Mike Pence going to town with a slew of untrue White House talking points in his desperation to try and justify this administration's dismal handling of immigration. And we'll start with the most egregious. Pence's claim that 90% of immigrants don't show up for their immigration hearings. A lie so obvious that Jake Tapper was able to call him out on the spot. The truth is that data shows that the large majority, about 75%, do come back for their hearings. And that number used to be even higher before the Trump administration ended an Obama-era program that matched asylum seekers with case managers who encouraged compliance with court-ordered obligations. That program's participants had a 100% attendance record at court hearings and a 99% rate of check-ins and appointments with ICE. This program was in effect and clearly working, and yet the Trump administration still opted to end it, either because it had Obama's name on it, or because they just needed an excuse to drum up anti-immigrant sentiment, and an effective program showing them following the rules just wouldn't cut it. And this isn't even the only evidence of cooperation. Study after study by U.S. government commission sources shows tremendously high levels of compliance with court proceedings among asylum seekers, with rates typically starting in the high 70s all the way up to the aforementioned perfect attendance. But again, this is less about fixing the problem than exacerbating it as a means to a political end. Pence then goes on to tout Trump's border wall, which is not so much a viable solution as it is a massive waste of taxpayer dollars. Trump is advocating for the wall not because it's the best solution, it's clearly not, but because he needs it to give credence to his campaign slogan. That's it. And obviously Pence knows that. He's just being a good soldier, just blindly taking his marching orders because why get into politics other than to pledge allegiance to a megalomaniac overseeing modern-day internment camps? If Trump or Pence actually cared about practical solutions, they would look into using funds to hire personnel. They would invest in technology. They would seek 21st century solutions to a 21st century problem, as opposed to taking their cues on international relations from Game of Thrones. The wall didn't work there either. And beyond that, Trump also wouldn't cut off aid to what's referred to as the Northern Triangle, which Pence actually brings up. And yet he did, eliminating funds to Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, thereby further entrenching their economic turmoil that causes mass migration in the first place. That's like getting pissed off that you're spending too much on dental bills from cavities, so you decide to simply stop going to the dentist. I don't think that's going to do the trick. Pence says that people in the Northern Triangle are paying $5,000 per person to be transported up to America. Now, we've learned in just this interview that Pence's words are completely baseless, but let's just grant him that. Let's just say that what he says here is true, that people are paying massive sums to escape their country and come to the US. If conditions are that bad at home that they're willing to spend likely their life savings just to leave, then maybe, just maybe, we don't want to cut off their last lifeline. It sure is funny how every last dollar counts when it's going toward poor brown people, but I haven't heard a peep about Trump's weekly $1 million+ golf outings from the right. Not a word about how the $1.5 trillion tax cut in fact won't be paying for itself like Republicans promised. Deafening silence about our bloated $750 billion military budget request by Trump, which is more than the Pentagon even wanted. It's almost like the GOP is only fiscally conservative when they don't stand to benefit. So Pence can wheel off made-up statistics to advance the White House's xenophobic agenda, but if he bothered to look at the actual facts, he'd realize his administration's actions actually do more harm than good.